The current case that we're working on at the moment is transfemoral prosthetics, which is an above-the-knee amputation. We're having a look at assessing clients and creating a prosthesis to be able to get them up and walking again. Typically the process that we'd go through would be a clinical assessment, so we'd sit the client down, have a bit of a chat. It's very goals focused, so it's what the client wishes to be able to get out of the prostheses, and that can be anywhere from just being able to sit comfortably in a wheelchair to being able to go and play sports in the community. We'll take a few measurements of their residual limb, and then we'll start the process of casting. And then taking that cast, filling it, doing some modifications, almost like, I guess in simple terms, like sculptural sort of work. And we'll then end up making a hard socket, then constructing the limb from that. Then eventually the client will come back in, we'll fit the prostheses and see how that's working out. Now generally it's not a one-time, it fits and it's perfect. Generally it's a lot of back and forth and just trying to figure out with the client what's going to work best for them.
We mould this socket, we then go and build it, grind it, make sure it's perfect fit. And then we will order in, for this is an above knee amputee, we'll order in a knee component and a foot component. Most importantly is before you get to this stage, you have to figure out what the patient wants, like what are the goals? Because if they don't want to run, why would you give them a running leg? Or if they just want to be stable, why would you give them like this multi-axial knee? Because it's not what they want.
Understanding clients' needs is probably the absolute most important factor of our job here, because whatever we build them, they're only going to wear it if it's going to work for them with what they need to be able to do.
My first amputee patient here, I gave him a foot that was really dynamic. He was 70. He said he liked to be in the garden, so I'm like, oh, dynamic foot, he'll be able to adjust in the garden, uneven terrains. Then when he tried it, like bless him, because he was trying really hard to be stable for me, but he really just needed a single motion foot, just moving in one plane. I learnt from that because I should have listened that he just wanted to be stable in the garden, he didn't want to explore the garden. Establishing those goals, what they want early, and make sure you're on the same page is really, really important. My supervisor, he would always ask the patient, what's their number one problem? What's stopping them from achieving X? Because sometimes when you're talking to your patient, there's a million goals coming towards you, and it's hard to focus on which is the most important. So he would always go, what's your number one priority here? Once that main problem is fixed with the patient, that again creates a good sort of rapport, and they're happy, and then you can then look at what's the next problem.
From post-World War II, the 1950s, to where technology is at the moment and to where technology is going, things like bone-anchored prostheses, electrodes being implanted into the skin and sending signals from the brain to the limbs or where the limbs used to be, is where things are going. And the more funding and the more research put into those things, the more accessible it becomes for everyday patients.
I was a dancer before I came to university, so I had a real interest in human bodies and movement, and so I started in an undergraduate degree doing human anatomy and physiology, and I had this idea that I wanted to work with people and work with people's bodies, and so I think during my final year I kind of fell in love with the idea of doing prosthetics, just because there is this element of like unpredictability and creativity, as well as that real structured design element and problem solving.
I just think this is the most incredible, rewarding career pathway, honestly. To be able to see someone who has not been able to walk for, it could have just been immediately, but it could also be 50 years that they've been wheelchair bound, and you're making this device that's getting them up and able to do things like go out to dinner with their family, go for a walk with their kids. It's the most beautiful experience to watch someone be able to stand up and walk.